All right, good evening, everyone. So this class is being recorded. I will be sending a link to everyone once it is ready. It'll be up on our YouTube channel, hopefully within a few days. I am also in the chat right now. I am putting in a link to the handout for those of you who haven't been able to download it yet. The chat box is open, so feel free to pop in, say hi, tell us where you're joining us from. We will have plenty of time for questions after my presentation. But if you're having any technical issues, please let me know in the chat and I will do what I can. I also must apologize in advance. It's rather warm in Boston today, and our library has not yet turned on the air conditioning. So I'll be taking frequent sips of water here. For those of you who live around here know what that's like. All right, so our class today is researching your Irish ancestors. Okay, all right. Here we go. So before we get going, we acknowledge that the Boston Public Library's Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem, providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people and is a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. We are committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement will take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. So for those of you who don't know me, if you're joining us for the first time, my name is Jessie Wheeler. I am the genealogy specialist here at the BPL. I work at the Research Services Department at the Central Library in Copley Square. Oh, wow, we have someone from Scotland. Welcome. Must be kind of late over there. I appreciate that. We got folks from Ireland, Utah, Pennsylvania, and of course, Massachusetts, Australia. Wow. Okay, that is great. All right, well, welcome everyone from all over the world, it looks like. That is great. Oh, Rochester, excellent, California, excellent. It's great to see you all. All right, so as I said, this class is researching Irish ancestors. This is geared more towards beginners, so I'm just going to be providing a general overview of the kinds of resources that are available, and I'll be talking a little bit about some of the pitfalls to this kind of research. So we will first be doing a brief geography lesson for Ireland, and we're going to talk about immigration, kind of resources the BPL has. So that's going to be more towards those of you who are joining us from Massachusetts. And we will be talking about some other resources that are available as well. All right, so a little time for the quick geography lesson. If you look on your handout, if you've seen that yet already, there is a map of the counties, and we're going to be seeing that map in a little bit. So Ireland is traditionally organized by 4 provinces and then by 32 counties. There are 26 counties in what is today called the Republic of Ireland, and 6 counties in what is today Northern Ireland. So this is important to know because genealogical and other information, other records organized by government is often organized by county. This is if you're looking at governmental records, that's how they will be organized. So this is just a list of the provinces. I'm probably not going to pronounce any of them right, so I'm not going to try to go through all of them. The provinces are Connaught, Leinster, Munster, and Ulster. And there's all these counties here. I do myself have some Irish ancestors. I believe they're from County Cork. That's, I think, what my aunt told me. That's, I believe, where my ancestors are from, but I'm not 100% on that. So this is just, these are some of the counties that your Irish ancestors may have been from. And this is a map of Ireland right here. This map is included in your handout. So these pink, orangey colored here, that is Northern Ireland, and the green counties here, that is the Republic of Ireland. So you can kind of see how it's laid out. That's why you'll see there's a lot of people who will find that they have ancestry from Kerry, Cork, Limerick, and Clare, Galway, all these bigger provinces on the western coast of Ireland, because they're bigger, there are probably a little more people there. And then also you'll often see folks who departed from that part of Ireland will depart from one of the ports in one of those counties. So you'll see a lot of people traveling from that area, from those counties. Okay, so geography lesson is over. So, contrary to what a lot of people might believe, there have almost always been Irish in the United States. Before the 19th century, before the big wave that most people are familiar with, the most Irish were Scots Irish, and they were generally from Ulster, which, as we go back here, that's the province. That's one of the traditional provinces. So that's traditionally where they would have come from. So they were descendants of Scottish Presbyterians that moved up to Ireland primarily during the 17th century. They were kind of driven out of Scotland for religious reasons. Religion was very, very important back then. So they settled there, and then eventually a lot of people decided to settle in the United States, or which was then a colony of the United Kingdom. So they're often also called Ulster Presbyterians. You'll see a lot of these folks, a lot of their descendants, you'll find them in the Appalachian Mountains in that area. There's a lot of people who are descended from the Scotch Irish there. So you can actually, fun little note, you can kind of hear that in the music that originated around there. There's a lot of music that's kind of inflected with Scotch Irish tones and instrumentation and things like that. So primarily that's what you got before the 19th century were the Scotch Irish. They did tend to be largely Protestant, like I said, Scottish Presbyterians. However, there were some Catholics that did come over. Things didn't go real well for them, especially in Massachusetts. There were several that were either driven out. There was one woman who's known only as Goody Glover, who was accused of witchcraft and eventually executed, but it was largely because she was Irish Catholic and she only spoke Irish. She didn't really understand English, so that's largely why she was discriminated against. So that sort of thing did happen. That's why you don't see a ton of Irish Catholics in Massachusetts during the colonial era. So like I said, here there were, like I said, primarily they settled in the Appalachian region, the Ulster Presbyterians, but they also settled in Pennsylvania. So you'll see a lot of their descendants around there as well. And there were, beyond the 18th century, there were two more waves of Ulster Presbyterians that came during the 19th century. There was a lot of religious upheaval going on, and that was during the time period where there weren't quite as many restrictions on immigration into the US as would come later on. So there was just a lot of immigration in general going on back then, but we weren't seeing the big waves of Catholic immigration quite yet. And that was largely spurred on by what most of you probably know. Sometimes it's called the potato famine. The more accurate name would be the Great Famine. It's also called the Great Hunger. So for those of you who aren't quite as familiar, it was a period of basically mass starvation and disease in Ireland. There were a lot of factors that led into it. There was a blight on the potato crop, and the potato crop was the main source of sustenance for a lot of the more rural, poor residents of Ireland. So when there was a potato blight, not only did they have no crops that they could trade or sell, but they had nothing to eat. So that's why it's called the Great Hunger. This was also exacerbated by British policy towards the Irish at that time. There was in actuality plenty of food to eat, but a lot of it was still exported to the UK and other parts of Europe. So that's a big part of what happened. It wasn't just the potato blight, it was also British policy towards the Irish at the time. About 1 million Irish died at that time. And also, this is the big reason why there was a huge wave of immigration to the US in the 19th century. And this is when we start seeing big waves of Catholic immigrants come to the US from Ireland. Okay, so I see, yes. So Kevin is correct. This will be posted to our YouTube channel once it is ready. It might take a little while, but this is being recorded and we will post it to our YouTube channel. So that's just a very, very brief overview of the Great Hunger. I'll have some suggestions for further reading if you're interested in learning more about that later, but this was a significant factor in why so many Irish came to the United States. So a lot of us here today, like I know for myself, this is when our ancestors came over. So Carol's asking, yes, I will also be sharing my slides. There's actually a link in the handout if you want to download the slides. Forgot to mention at the beginning. So because we are the Boston Public Library, we're going to be talking mostly about Boston. So locally, the earliest immigrants from Ireland to the Boston area settled in the North End, which is now largely known as an Italian neighborhood, but during the 19th century, it was actually an Irish neighborhood. This is actually where the Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys settled, and these are the ancestors of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, all the Kennedys. They originally lived in the North End. That's actually where Rose Fitzgerald was born, was in the North End. It eventually gradually changed over to what it is now, where it's still largely known as an Italian neighborhood. They also settled in what was Fort Hill at the time and what is now the Financial District. So that was also a largely Irish neighborhood. Eventually, the Irish moved, as did a lot of other ethnic groups at the time. They were among the first residents of some neighborhoods that were created by landfill projects. There are a lot of major landfill projects in the 19th century. I'm sitting on one right now here at the BPL, Back Bay. We're in the Back Bay neighborhood, and that was filled in by a landfill project in the 19th century. Where I'm sitting right now used to be a swamp. So the Irish were among the first settlers of two of these new places, the West End and the South Cove, which is now called Bay Village. Those of you who know the history of Boston, you know the West End, that was largely destroyed by the redevelopment in the 1950s and 1960s. And then some Irish continue to move, settling in South Boston and Charlestown. These are still primarily Irish neighborhoods. You'll see a lot of people of Irish descent in those neighborhoods. Have been there for generations. And then a lot of Irish still continue to move on to the South Shore after World War II. It's actually, there's a interesting nickname that's areas known by. They call it the Irish Riviera, because a lot of during the baby boomer period, a lot of Irish who lived in South Boston or Charlestown, a lot of them moved down there, so down to the South Shore. So you'll see a lot of people of Irish descent down there as well. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the resources we have here at the BPL. So this section is geared primarily towards those of you who live in Massachusetts, but there might be something useful for everyone else as well. So we do have a lot of books about this topic because there is such a large Irish population in the Boston area. There's been a lot written on this topic. So we're not going to look at all of these books. As I mentioned earlier, I will download copies of my slides later on if you want to, so you don't have to worry about writing everything down. You'll have access to all of this. So here we go. So these are just some general guides. A lot of these you can also access, some of these you can access online through Hoopla, which is an online service we subscribe to that you can log into through the BPL. These are just a few of the books that we have. So if you're looking for Irish ancestors from a particular area, there's also been some books written on some of those. Let's see if it's a load for me. There we go. So there's different counties. I don't think we have all the counties. If you're looking for these few counties here, we have some books that you can look at specifically to try to figure that out. We might have some more since I got this, since I put this together. There's some useful resources there. Then we have some these are some just interesting books I thought that we had that folks might find useful. So there's different information about Irish clans. We do have some passenger listings. So this is immigration from the United Kingdom to America, the United Kingdom at the time. This book was, these lists were produced, included what is now the Republic of Ireland. So I believe, yeah, this covers 1870. So this covers the 19th century. So this is when a lot of Irish would have been coming over. So something like this, it is a pretty big set. So this is something that has been very useful. And also, if you're interested in learning more about the Scotch Irish, we have books on that too. There we go. So this, we have some books that'll tell you how to research records in Scotland if you're interested in going back that far. And also you can learn about some more prominent Scotch-Irish people in the US, excuse me. Yep. Gosh, I'm going to be needing a lot of water tonight. It's about 80 degrees in here right now. All right, so we do have a few databases that can be useful. The one I'm going to highlight is Ancestry Library Edition. That is something that you can access at any BPL location. Also, for those of you not in Massachusetts, check with your local library to see if they have it. It's one of the biggest genealogy databases around. Most public libraries will have access to it, or if yours doesn't, a library near you will probably have it. It's very, very widely available at libraries. Let's close some tabs to see if it's to run a little faster. There we go. Okay, but the collection I would like to highlight in here. So there's a few different ways, just if you're doing general genealogy research, you can try looking at census records. With census records, I will warn you though, particularly if you're researching women who may have worked as domestic servants for some reason, I'm not quite sure why this happened. A lot of female domestic servants were just called Bridget. So their name might be in here as Bridget. That might not have been her actual name. Not sure why the Americans settled on Bridget as the name to call female Irish female servants, but there you go. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are looking at census records. But the collection I wanted to highlight here, is the Search for Missing Friends. Let's see if I can, there we go. So the Search for Missing Friends, there was a newspaper called the Boston Pilot that it was published in Boston, but it was nationally available. So it was distributed all over the country. It was an Irish newspaper that was published between 1831 and 1920. And one of the most enduring columns they had in there was Search for Missing Friends. So what would happen is people who lived in the US already, they were Irish, they knew they had a sibling or a friend or someone that came over and they lost track of them and they were trying to figure out where they were. So they would place advertisements in the hopes of trying to find them. So I'm just going to pick one at random here. So you can browse here below. You can also, if you have a name, you can do a search, but I just want you to see what it looks like. Here you go. So here you go. So basically it's put in a chronological order. So this person here was looking for someone named Patrick Kelly and his son James, who left from Glasgow, and they put the name of the ship, when they left, where they landed. And the last they heard of them, they were in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So they would give the information they had, where they thought they went, and give contact information for if you know where they are, or if you are this person, please contact me here. So this can be really valuable information, teach you something about the connections of the people you're researching, where they traveled to. If you've kind of hit a wall, you can get a sense of, well, they think they went to, for instance, if we're looking at this person, they think they were in Milwaukee. So then you can go to Milwaukee and see if you can research this person, see if you can find this person. Or even if you're looking at the person who placed the advertisements, like, oh, Henry Griffin was in Rochester when this advertisement was placed on January 3rd, 1857. So you know where you can go for the person who placed the advertisement. So this is a really good resource if you've kind of hit a dead area there and you're not quite sure where your immigrant ancestor went to. So this was something that they published regularly for almost the entire run of the newspaper. So like I said, it covers almost 100 years. So this is a really valuable resource, and you can get to this in ancestry.com. Which, as I said, if you live in Massachusetts and you live near the BPL, you can go to any BPL location. But if you don't live near here, check with your local library. Chances are that you can also get it through them. So that's the main one I wanted to highlight here. The other database collection I want to take a look at is American Ancestors. So this one is only available at the BPL Central Library. But they do offer, you can also, this is less widely available, but you can check with your local library, particularly if you're in New England, they might have it. It's definitely worth a shot, but they also have free resources. So there's still some useful things you can get to. Yes, Maggie is correct. Boston College has some of the newspapers free on their website. So it's pretty easy to get, it's a pretty widely available resource. So whoever did a good, archived it, did a really good job. So for American ancestors, to access most of their resources, you do have to have a paid membership, but if you have a free membership, there are free resources you can look at. So we're going to go to the A to Z list of all databases. And over here, we're going to click on only free databases. So we're going to look at, there we go. So this is, I wanted to show you. So the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Boston has been in a partnership with the New England Historic Genealogical Society, which are the ones that run this database. Over the past few years, they've been working on digitizing and transcribing all of their available records covering from 1789 to 1920. So if you have a paid subscription, you can actually use the transcribed version, so you can do a keyword search. Otherwise, you would have to use this one, which is image only. There's not going to be transcriptions here. It's just going to be something you'll have to look through. All right, so I'm just going to pick one at random here so you can see what it looks like. So let's do Holy Cross Marriages, page 100, and see what comes up here. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to take a look at this. So they're all going to look a little different. These were registers that were done by each parish that were eventually archived by the Archdiocese. So they're all going to look a little different. So this one is that from Holy Cross, this is just a list of names. So this looks like this is an index. You don't see it here, but one of the caveats I wanted to tell you about this one, a lot of them recorded everything in Latin. Even the first name and the last name, they would Latinize things. So if you're looking for Patrick, you're going to want to look for Patricius. My name, Jesse, they probably would have made something up weird. I'm not sure what exactly they would have done. That's something to keep in mind. So if you are able to access a paid subscription, they have tried to put English language translations in there to sort of get around that. But I want to see. Let's see if I can find an example of that for you, because it is pretty interesting. So this is Immaculate Conception in Everett. So this will cover all the parishes in the Archdiocese. So if you are doing the browsing, you kind of have to know what parish you're looking for. There we go. Okay. So again, they're all going to look a little different because these are all done by each parish. Some of them will just have blank ledger books, like you can see this one here. Some of them will have nice, neat pre-printed things. Okay, so you can see here, this is an example. So this person is listed as Albertus Patricius Doyle. Most likely his name was actually Albert Patrick. So that's just something to keep in mind. And you can see here, the priest is listed as Edwardus. His name was probably actually Edward. So that's just, again, something you want to keep in mind. And here we have Josephus, that's Joseph. Michael, they didn't change. William, they didn't change. Sometimes they'll have William in there as Guillaume, something like that. So that's the caveat that you have to look at with here. Also, it's the handwriting. This handwriting is actually pretty good. I've seen some truly atrocious handwriting in here. So that's just something to watch out for if you are able to use this collection. So those are the two main ones I wanted to show you. We do have a few other things. So one thing you can use from home, from the BPL, and again, if you check with your local library, if you're not in the Boston area, your libraries might have this as well. It's called Heritage Quest Online, which is something I like to refer to as Ancestry Lite. That's because it's done by the same company that does Ancestry.com. You can see here a lot of the graphics are similar. They just don't have quite as much, but you can search it from home. The other caveat with this is you have to pick a collection to search. You can't just do a search of all collections like you can with Ancestry.com. If you want to learn more about how to use these databases, I am actually teaching another class in June about BPL databases. So there'll be some information on that in our follow-up email that you're going to get tomorrow. So if you want to go more in depth into our genealogy databases, definitely feel free to sign up for that. We have more to go on, so we're not going to linger too long on here. But if, for instance, if you, like I said, if you want to look at census records, you have to just search the census records. You can't just search for everything. The other big thing that, that can be useful, and I try to promote this in all of my classes, is newspapers. Newspapers you can use a lot more than just looking for obituaries. There's a lot of stuff you can get in newspapers. So these are some of the big ones that we use. The main one we're going to look at here is the Irish Times. This is another one. So this was published, let's see, I'm not sure exactly. Here we go. Okay, so coverage we have the Irish Times and the Irish Weekly Times. So again, just as a reminder, this is being recorded. You'll be able to watch this recording once it's up on our YouTube channel later. Whoops, there we go. All right, so again, coverage here is, I'm not sure what years they have, but yeah, so this is the Irish Times. So it was published in Ireland, but it was widely distributed in the United States. So this is something, Arlene, everyone will be getting an email with a link to the recording once it's ready. I can't send you the link until the recording is up there. We're not streaming on YouTube right now. It's just on Zoom, but everyone will get a link to the YouTube recording later on. All right, so this is the Irish Times. So again, this was published in Ireland, but it was widely distributed in the United States. So a lot of Irish locally would look at this and, they would get it and read it to find out what was going on. And there was stuff about America here. So we're just gonna pick a random date here. Now let's do my uncle's birthday. Different year though. There we go. So let's see. So they got a lot of classified ads, apparently. There we go. Okay, so so the cool thing about this database and a lot of the ProQuest historical newspaper databases are they will have images, so you can actually see what it looked like. So it's going to be a copy of a copy at this point. This is probably scanned from microfilm, so it's not going to be the super duper great quality, but it's still legible. So you can get some information about what was going on in Ireland. Was it Dublin? Or I believe the Irish Times was nationwide. I'm not 100% sure that. I just know it was published in Dublin, but I believe they covered the whole country. So let me see what else might be on this page so we can tell. It's loading a little slowly here. They also had a lot of advertisements. It's bigger. There we go. Okay, so yeah, they did something about the Queen's visit to the continent. So this would have been Queen Victoria. So looks like Kingstown. Okay, so it looks like it was published in Dublin, but they did have sections for other parts of the country. It's about the church, but it looks like there were a lot of advertisements as well. So this is just kind of fascinating to look at, just if you want to get a sense of what was going on in Ireland at the time. And let's see. So other newspapers, like I said, probably the most widely used one would be the Boston Globe. We have, so it looks pretty similar to what the Irish Times looks like. It's the same interface, but the other one I would like to show you is My Heritage Library Edition. So I'm showing this one to you because a lot of newspapers, oh yes, sorry, as I should have said. So if you have a BPL card, you can access all of these newspapers from home with your BPL card. Sorry, I should have mentioned that before. Thank you for reminding me. All right, so I will say this database is why I wanted to show it to you. It's pretty tricky. It's an excellent resource. They have a lot of really great newspapers that were actually scanned from the BPL's collection, but it is a little tricky to use. I would say if you're using Google Chrome from home, use this in incognito mode. For some reason, it doesn't really work outside of incognito mode. It's really, really strange. We're not quite sure why that's happening. Our IT people have been working on it for a while, but we're not sure. So Marie's asking, you can get a BPL card for online use if you don't live or work in Massachusetts. No, you cannot. Our online resources are only for people who live, work, go to school, or own property in Massachusetts. We don't. I know some other libraries might have a fee-based system. We do not have that here because that would violate our user agreements. But you can always just check with your local library to see if they have this. Also, if you're looking for a specific thing, you can feel free to send us an email and we can always just send you an article or two if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so, all right, so let's go. Okay, so like I said, so this one's a little tricky. So I recommend using it in incognito mode if you're using it through the BPL. There's something weird going on there. The other issue is the keyword search doesn't really work. So this is fine if you're just looking for a person's name, but if you're not, it can get a little tricky. I usually recommend that folks try to figure out the smallest amount of words possible for the thing they're looking for, and then just try to pretend it's a name and split it up that way. I'm not sure why it's like this. It's a little glitchy, but there is a lot of really good stuff in here if you're willing to just fiddle around with it. So I'm going to look for, let's try, no, that wasn't it. I can't. Okay. Gonna look for my great grandmother, Margaret McMahon. So this does have a little bit of overlap with Ancestry.com that you can see. They do have things like birth, death, and marriage records, census records, and things like that. But why we like it is for the newspapers. So you click on the newspapers here. So once you get in there, you can limit it down here, over here on the lower left-hand side. You can limit it by place, year, and publication title. My great-grandmother was from Rhode Island, so let's see, I don't know what we have for Rhode Island here, but let's see. I'm gonna go to, so we're gonna look at Massachusetts. So almost all of these were scanned from the BPL's collection. So you can see they have a lot of interesting stuff here. None of these are my great-grandmother, I will just say, but they, you can see here, there's this everything, there's a lot of really, really great stuff that is not available in any other database. So again, if you can't access this because you're not in Massachusetts, you can do they do offer a free trial for 7 days, so you could try that. Also, if you have a specific thing you're looking for, you can always shoot us an email and we will see if we can find it for you and we will send it out to you. But let's look at Hyde Park Gazette here just so you can see what it looks like. And there we go. So this one, again, it's a little glitchy, but it is very, very useful. So you can see here, normally it would highlight the results, so you wouldn't have to go hunting around and find it. So I'm not sure where this Margaret McMahon is listed, but you can see here, scroll in real big, you can kind of look around at everything that's there. I always find it fascinating looking at newspapers from that time period. There'd be engagement announcements, different things about charity events, and lots of really interesting things of what was going on around that time. Okay, so let's see. Oh, we're good on time. All right, so one thing I also am like to try to point people towards are the BPL research guides. These are guides that were put together by BPL staff. They include information about resources that the BPL has, as well as links to other resources. In particular, we're going to take a look at the genealogy research guide. Try to click some tabs here. There we go. So this is the special topics guide. So this is things if you're researching adoption and things like that, but we're going to look at the heritage section. So I have section here on Irish, researching Irish ancestry. So this, we're talking about a lot of stuff that's in here, but this is good if you want, you can go back to it later. I will, well, let me see if I can get that to work. Okay, there we go. So I will send a link, I will post a link to this in the chat for anyone who wants to save that later. I will also be sending everyone a copy of the chat transcript, so don't worry if you missed a link or something, and you'll be able to get that later. I will send that out to you tomorrow. You can just look through this and just you can see, get links to general guides. Also, if you happen to be researching Italian ancestry or French or African American ancestry or Native American ancestry, we have sections on that too. This is another good resource. I encourage you all to take a look at that, and also just our genealogy guides in general. Okay, so another good resource that we have online are the Boston List of Residents. So most places throughout the country would have something similar. So these are basically be drawn largely from voter registration rolls, and they would list people who are eligible to vote, or registered to vote, or over a certain age, depending on what the criteria was, and it would tell you where they lived, their age, their occupation. So for Boston, we have them online from 1909 to 1974. We digitize a new volume every year with a 50-year gap. So we just had 1974 put up. So we're going to take a look. Let's just get one of these so you can see what they look like. So again, these are specifically for Boston, but most places in the country had something like this. It might have looked a little different, but a lot of places would have lists like this. So go, and this is a free resource that's on the Internet Archive. So this is not something you have to use through the BPL. If you actually just Google it, you can probably see it. Okay, so here we go. You can see here, make this a little bigger. There we go. So this is for 1922, I believe. So this will tell you the person's name. The dagger there, that means that was a woman. They started doing that shortly after women got the right to vote. So this will tell you the address. So this is for 2 Antrim Street. It'll tell you their occupation, their age, and also most importantly, where they were living the year before. So if you're trying to figure out where a person was, if you find them one year, you can go backwards as far as you possibly can. So you can see here. So these folks lived at 9 Antrim Street in 1923, and the previous year they lived at 115 Leyden. So then we can go back there, kind of trace them backwards to see where they might have been. And they also, I believe this is during the time period where they also, you can see there's little asterisks there. I believe that was for military veterans, because this was not long after World War I. So they would also mark veterans of World War I in here. They did not do that every year. That was mostly for the years closest to the wars. So again, this is for Boston, but if you check with your local library, wherever you're from, chances are they will have something like this. There are a lot of places in the United States publish things like this. You might have to go to a bigger town. For instance, there are places in Massachusetts where there's just a bunch of small towns are listed with a bigger town. Like I think that happened with some places in Worcester County. They were just all grouped with Worcester. So if there isn't one for a smaller town that you're looking for, then you can just check with the biggest town nearby, and chances are they'll have something like this. Okay, so that's just one of the really great resources I like to promote. And also, if you're interested in learning more about the newspapers we have another research guide for that. Okay, let's see. Okay. So in the other, so this is done by one of my coworkers. So you can also, there are some Massachusetts newspapers that are available for free online. Okay, someone's asking for the handout. There's the handout. Oops. Isn't that what I meant to do? Okay, to task. There we go. Okay, so there are some that are available online. So the big one that I like to point out to people, if you go here to Boston 19th Century, is the Daily Evening Transcript. That was basically the paper of record for Boston for many, many years. It was kind of like the New York Times of Boston. That was considered that was the paper that the proper people read. So if you're looking for someone, and they also had a really good art coverage section. So if you're looking for artists who might have had performance or an exhibition or something in Boston, they might have been covered in here. All right, so we've covered just some of the resources the BPL has. And we're going to cover some other resources, and a lot of these are going to be free. I'm going to show you. So if you're interested in learning even more about geography, then we've already gone through. So you can go to wesleyjohnston.com. That'll go into more detail about the different counties, the formation of the provinces and all of that, population and all that. So this can help you figure out if you know what county your person came from. You can go to the county and you're not sure where. You can try the county town and see if they have records there. They can help you figure that out. There's also, if you're interested, you can find out information about how these places got their names. Okay, so so also if you're looking for, if you're researching Scots-Irish ancestry, legacytree.com has a really great blog post here that goes into more explanation as to what Scots-Irish is, where their descendants can be found, where they came from, and the kind of resources that are available to look through that. Okay, and so another great resource, so the National Archives of the United Kingdom has a database. It is not free. I believe you can look through the index. So you can look for records here, but they do charge to download the record. So this will cover, this is really helpful. So the Scotland one for statutory registers and parish registers goes back to 1553. So if you're researching someone from Scotland from way back, go through here. For Irish records, it looks like they started registration in 1864. So if you're looking for that, just the UK archives are a really great resource just in general. If you have any ancestors who are from the United Kingdom and Scotland, including Scotland and Ireland and Wales, they're a really great resource. Which I believe they're underutilized by Americans. A lot of Americans don't know about it. So definitely reach out to them if you're looking for ancestors from there. So we're going to go back a little bit to the New England Historic Genealogical Society. In addition to the free databases they also have free research guides. So you do have to sign up for a guest membership, which I already have. So I'm going to log in so you can see this. Go. Oops. Come on now. Okay. So we actually are, I was gonna mention irishgenealogy.ie, right to beat me to the punch. But yes, that's another excellent resource. So this is another good resource. This is done by a professional genealogist who work at the New England Historic Genealogical Society. It'll give you links to how-to guides. Some of these are going to be books. There'll be links to other records, other places online we can look at. Some of the resources we're going to be talking about here. Church records, not just Catholic, but also Church of Ireland, Presbyterian, and Quaker records. And you can burial records. So this is another really great resource. It is a free registration, but it's definitely pretty useful. Okay, so yeah, we got time. Okay, so another resource, this is basically, we're going to go over to familysearch.org. This is another free website. For this section, they do not require you to register, but if you want to look at their online records, you do have to do that. So this is basically kind of like Wikipedia for genealogy. It is completely free. So they have different sections. So they tell you, they give you tips on how to do the kind of research you're doing, links to different topics, links to online records. This is a great resource because everything is completely free. Okay, and if you're interested in learning more just about Ireland in general, you can head on over to Boston College. They have a great Irish Studies portal. They actually have a fairly big collection here. So this will just give you some information about what they have. You might need to be a student there to look at some of these things, but there are some free things here, and you can also they have contact information there, so you can contact them if you're looking for something from them that might be useful. Okay. Going. All right. So in addition to the UK archives, another website that is useful are the National Archives of Ireland. This is an excellent resource. So not only do they have guides to how to do this kind of research, but they also have links to their own records. I believe everything on here is free. I'm not 100% sure though. So you can see here, oh, there we go. And there we go. So this will tell you what they have. So they have records here, look, going back to 1596. I don't know if all of these are online, but some of them are, it looks like. So you can look at some of these things. It is just a truly great resource. I definitely recommend that. And let's see. So we're gonna, okay. All right, so this is a website, Find My Past. It is a paid resource. It is generally a paid database. BPL does not subscribe to Find My Past, but they do have a free record section, and this is one of them. So Roman Catholic parish baptisms. So we haven't talked too much about this yet. We're going to go into this a little later when we get to another one of our resources. A lot of government records were destroyed purposely during what they call the Troubles during that time period. So a lot of things were destroyed. So in some cases, if you're looking for a Catholic, your best bet is to go for the Catholic Church records. So this will tell you, you can browse by parish in here. They have all of them listed alphabetically. You can go by county. You can go by diocese. So this is another great resource. If you have a good idea of where they're from, you can also just search by name. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to type in one of my ancestors. Oh, actually, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. So just for the heck of it, I'm going to type in one of my ancestors' names. He was Dennis Geary. So let's see. Oh, they have one result. Okay. Okay, oh, they actually have 15 results. So there I have every Dennis Gary that they have a record for. I'm not sure if any of these are my Dennis Gary, but you can see here. Let's just, so this is going to be, okay, so over here you have these little, these little images. You can look at the image. So we're going to take a look at that. They also have a link to view the transcript. This would like to load for me. Okay, so this is pretty graphics heavy, so it does load a little slowly at times. So that's just something to keep in mind. There we go. Okay, so this is a good example. This is a lot of records were just handwritten in the night, particularly in the 19th century. So you might have to work a bit to try to read it. So this is pretty hard to read. But generally, that's why a lot of folks might want to go for the transcript, because these records are transcribed. So if you look at the transcript, there you go. So there you go. So this will tell you year was baptized, the parish, diocese, county, everything like that. The parents' names. It'll even give you the mother's maiden name. The archive where they have the record. So if you did want to look at the actual register, if you were to go to Ireland, you would know where to go. So this is another great free resource that you can take advantage of. Okay, so wait, actually, that's not the one I wanted to click on. There we go. That's the one I wanted to click on. Okay, so irishgenealogy.ie, which has already been mentioned, is another truly excellent resource. It is free. They might require I think they do require a free registration. So it's a lot like familysearch.org. So you can search their online records. So they also, in addition to church records, they also have civil records. So, because we already looked at church records, okay, so we're going to look for Dennis Gary again, just to see what they have. Oh, okay, no, I am not a robot. Okay, so I guess I have to do it again. Oh, okay, so, okay, yeah. So this, you just have to type your name in. This is just something that they require. There we go. So this will tell you everything that they have in the civil records online for Dennis Gary. Again, I don't know if any of these are related to me. Probably not, because my Dennis Gary was already in the United States in the 20th century. He came over in the 1850s, I believe. Okay, so let's just click on that one. So you can see here, what'll come up automatically is the transcription, and then you can click on the image. So this is slightly easier to read, so you can look at the register here. So why this can also be useful is if you want to see what was going on. So if you see a lot of people who died of the same thing, you can think, oh, there might have been an outbreak of something going on. You can see just generally what was happening at that time. So here we go. There's Dennis Gear. Oh, you can see here it'll have, so yeah, they're still using the word spinster back then. It'll tell you their marital status, their profession, cause of death. Let's see if I can bigger. So typhoid fever, we have pertussis. We have a lot of pertussis, whooping cough, someone drowned. Oh, it's Dennis Gary. Looks like Dennis Gary drowned. It'll also tell you the informant. So this would be the person who would have filled out the information. This is where they got the information from. So this is a really awesome resource. And again, it is completely free. You just have to assign that little thing. It's really great. Okay, so those are all paid resources. So another thing I always like to recommend to anyone doing genealogy research, if you're really having trouble, there's probably a society that can help you. There's genealogy societies to cover pretty much every geography, every ethnicity, everything. Now, so this is, of course, true for Ireland. So first up, there's the Genealogical Society of Ireland, which I believe that is, oh, come on now. So that is based in Ireland. So they'll tell you different databases you can try. Some of these are going to be paid, some of them will be free. They do have some free resources. They occasionally will do lectures. And if you're interested in joining, you can do that. It's a really great place to reach out to. I always recommend contacting genealogical societies because a lot of people who belong to them, they love genealogy, and a lot of them will be happy to help you out. The biggest one, I believe, in the US, though, is the Irish Ancestral Research Association, or TIARA. They publish a newsletter, I believe, 4 times a year, and we do get that here at the BPL. So if you're interested in looking through their newsletter, and you're in the area, you can come on over to the BPL and take a look at that. So they also will sometimes have events. They have conferences. They do have a pretty extensive library. They have different projects they're working on. So if you can help them with a project, you can do that. They have a surname database you can contribute to. So it's, again, a really great place to contact. And again, they're delightful people. They do lectures. They can help you out. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Oh, there we go. Well, let's click on the library, see if they have a picture. There we go. And they are based in Eastern Mass. So if you live around here, you can actually visit their library in Sudbury if you live in the area. So that stuff, I haven't been able to get out there yet, but I know some people who have. I'm told it's beautiful. So there are a couple more, but what we're going to focus on here is the virtual record treasury of Ireland. I did mention before, a lot of government records in Ireland were destroyed by fire. The Public Record Office of Ireland was destroyed in June 30th, 1922, which was a huge, huge loss. But there was a project that was used to kind of cobble together the surviving records, find replacement records. So now what they have is the virtual record of treasury of Ireland. And I cannot speak Gaelic, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name. So it's really cool. You can do, you can see it's playing in the background there. They have a little virtual treasury that you can kind of poke around. This here just explains it. So this, again, this is all completely free, open access. You can just click over here and let's see if we can just browse here. See what they have. Okay, so these are some of the recreated record collections they found. So let's try that one. So I was very happy when I found out about this. Okay. So yeah, and some of these collections were donated. There were some archives that would have had copies of things that were destroyed. So this was a massive, massive project that took many, many years. This website is fairly new, but let's click on that one so we can just take a look at something that they have in here. There you go, view digital content. There you go. So, oh, well, they even show you the spine. That is excellent. Most places do not digitize the spine. That is pretty cool. So this is a book from the 17th century. So I love looking at old books online. I just find it so fascinating. So again, I have trouble with the handwriting, but there's definitely stuff in here that might be useful to you. It's a wonderful, wonderful project, and I'm so glad it's worked out so well. Okay, so I'm not going to click on all of these, but if you're interested in learning more about any of the things I've talked about, the history of immigration patterns, the Great Famine, anything like that, Scotch-Irish ancestry, Irish in the Boston area. These are some really great websites and articles that I found very helpful in doing my own research. I always recommend folks learn about the history of the place and the people that you're researching. If you know the history of a place, you can figure out what was going on with your ancestors. You can figure out why they might have done certain things they've done, why they lived where they lived, why they had a certain occupation, or why they might have had a particular illness or something. So I always recommend learn the history. Don't just look for the people, look for the place, look for the history. Because not only will it help you do more research, it'll help give you a better understanding of what your ancestors' lives were like. So it's something I like to push in all my classes, learn the history. All right, so that is the end of my slides. So it looks like we have a few questions. I'm going to go back and hopefully I can get to everyone. Okay, let's see. Okay, my thanks to people who answered questions while I was talking. I appreciate. That's why I open up the chat box so you all can help each other. Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yes, it'll be posted on YouTube. So Maggie says, most of my Irish ancestors immigrated in the 1880s. I always wonder why they'd come a while after surviving the famine. Well, there could have been any number of reasons. Things still weren't really great for the Irish after the famine was over. There was a lot of Irish. I mean, a lot of them did come during the famine years, but still a lot came after that. The 19th century saw a lot of Irish immigration. Ireland actually never recovered its population levels from what happened during the famine, with a lot of people dying or leaving. The population, I don't remember the exact number, but there aren't nearly as many people living in Ireland now as there were before the famine. So there was just a lot of immigration for many reasons. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Carrie is mentioning the Dyer Memorial Library in Abington. Okay, yep, they do have the pilot. So what I should have mentioned, we also have the Boston pilot on microfilm if you're interested in coming in and looking at that. Okay, let's see. We did that. Okay, so the Irish Times. Oh, right, I did cover that. So any of the newspapers I talked about, you can access from home with your BPL card. Okay. So we did that. Okay. So Arlene's asking, does one need a MyHeritage account to access their records? If you're using our subscription, if you live in Massachusetts, no, you don't need to have your own account. So MyHeritage is a little bit like Ancestry.com. There's a little bit of a split. There's institutional membership, so that's when you access it through a library. There's also individual memberships. So you do need to have an individual membership if you want to create a family tree or save records within the site. So, and yeah, so Ancestry does have a bundle thing that they have, newspapers.com, which we also don't have. So if you want to do things like save a family, like you do a family tree, you do need to have your own subscription. You can't do that through the libraries. So there was a discussion on bans. Like everyone that mentioned that is correct. That wasn't really, so that was, it's not something that's done anymore. I think they still do it in some parts of the United Kingdom, that basically you have to publish, these two people intend to get married. If anyone has any objections, please let it be known, something like that. So it wasn't just the Catholic Church. A lot of Protestant churches would do that too. But I don't think it's done in the US anymore. It's not, I believe it's still done in parts of the UK. I'm not 100% sure where though. 3 weeks. Okay. Okay, so Maggie's asking, do you have advice on researching Irish immigrant ancestors who never naturalized and so never appeared in directories or residence lists? So there are still some things they would show up in. So city directories they would still show up in. That has nothing to do with immigration status or whether or not they were a citizen. And again, that doesn't, it just means if they couldn't register to vote, they wouldn't be in things that were based on voter registration rolls. Not everything was. City directories are based on city censuses. So anyone can fill those out. So you can still look for things like city directories, town directories, regardless of whether or not they were a citizen, they should be in things like that. Okay. Let's see. So there was a question about Edwin Booth. I'm not quite sure what they were asking. I do know Edwin Booth is buried in Mount Auburn Cemetery. His late wife was actually from the Boston area, so you can go visit his grave if you're interested in that sort of thing. I'm not quite sure what they were looking for. Okay. Carrie has an excellent suggestion. For anyone interested in looking for information on the Massachusetts Catholic Order of Foresters, can go to, it looks like UMass Boston has things in their database. So that's great. Thank you, Carrie. Okay. So Nova Scotia. So Nova Scotia is interesting. So one thing that would happen is sometimes it was a little cheaper for folks to go to travel from the UK to the maritime provinces of Canada first and then go to the US. A lot of folks just decided to stay in the maritime provinces. That's why you'll see there's a big Irish population in the Canadian maritime provinces. So again, I'm not an expert on that area. I do know that I believe the province of Nova Scotia has a pretty extensive archive online, so you can definitely reach out to them. Okay, so Arlene's asking, are there county-specific sources in Ireland? Like my Moran relatives had ties to Tipperary. Yes. So some of the resources that we didn't look at here, like FamilySearch.org, for instance, has a page that's organized by county that you can look at. So that'll tell you, there we go. So So that will tell you what's, what counties are around and what offices and what places you need to go to. So there you go. So that'll tell you so the county towns, I believe, are kind of like capitals. And oh, it's actually really cool. They'll also have the Irish name there. So if you can pronounce it, that's great. I cannot, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying. So yeah, so there are places that will organize information by county. Okay, a plug for visiting the archives. If you're ever in Dublin, I would like to go someday. Also, yes, Beth's mentioning, so country genealogy pages on Facebook. That's another great example. And a lot of what I was talking about, genealogy societies, a lot of them have Facebook pages. So definitely that's something to keep in mind. You can do a search on Facebook for whatever genealogy you're looking for. There's probably a group on there. It's social media can still be useful. Okay, so Breda says just 1880s land leak struggles. I'm not quite sure what you're asking about. If you can clarify that. So John is asking, I didn't see any references to the local Catholic cemeteries. Any ideas? So that's kind of tricky. So you can try, depending on where it is, there is the Boston Catholic Cemetery Association that oversees some of them. It's the Boston Catholic. So they don't oversee all of them. So some records might be with this group, some of them might be with the Archdiocese archives. It kind of depends. So the Boston Catholic Cemetery Association does have a section for genealogy. So if you're looking at one of the cemeteries they cover, I'm not sure which ones that is, which ones they are. Yeah, so you can go through them. If they're not covered by that, you could try the Boston Archdiocese. If it's a parish cemetery and the parish is still around and still oversees it, your best bet would be to contact the parish directly. But Catholic records can be a little tricky because the Catholic Church is not a public entity. They don't legally have to release any records, so they can be kind of tricky. Okay, so Brenda's asking, do you have any favorite resources for finding passenger lists on ships? Well, Ancestry.com has a ton of passenger listings on there. They have an immigration section that includes passenger lists. The caveat with that, though, is there's lots of mistakes in names. So you might have to try different variants, and not necessarily everything is on there, but I do recommend them. They have so many things. They have, for Boston, I believe, covering from the 19th century to the early 20th century. It's great. Joyce is asking, how important is it to name search databases using the apostrophe in a last name, or should I leave it out? So I would leave it out. Most databases will have an option to do sounds like or similar to, so it'll just automatically look for everything that's close to what you wrote in, and that's what I recommend, especially for a lot of Irish names. There's a lot of Irish names that have apostrophes, and there's a lot of different spelling variations of a lot of Irish names. For instance, I've lost count of how many different ways there are to spell Connolly. So especially for names like that, I do recommend, there's usually going to be an option to click search for similar sounding names. So I would leave out the apostrophe and also do that. So yeah, Anne is pointed out, yes. So non-citizens would also be in the census. So just because someone wasn't a citizen doesn't mean they won't be listed anywhere. They will be listed somewhere. So Stephanie is asking, so when certain items aren't available at home with a BPL card, that means you have to use these resources at a branch on a BPL computer. So yes and no. So things like that, you do have to use at the BPL, but you don't have to be on a BPL computer. If you bring your own laptop with you, you can use that. If you bring a tablet with you, you can use that. You just have to be on our Wi-Fi network. You don't have to be on one of our computers. So Linda's asking, are the resident lists in Boston different from the directories? Yes, they are. They're drawn from different resources. As I mentioned, the directories are drawn from city census largely, and those are privately published. The resident lists are drawn from voter registration rolls, and those are published by the city. So they're different, they are different entities and they'll have different information. Barbara's asking, does Cambridge also have resident lists like Boston does? I'm not 100% sure on that. I know they do have city directories, so I'm not sure if they have residence lists. I would suggest contacting the Cambridge Public Library to see about that. Okay, so Rosemary has a link there to that's right. I knew they had that. So the Nova Scotia Archives, I've definitely used that website before. I had a question about the Halifax explosion, and that was a great website. Okay. So, well, thank you for expounding on that, Breda. So Breda's asked, so someone asked why people would be immigrating after the famine and the land leak struggles in the 1880s was one reason. Well, thank you very much, Breda. That's very helpful. Okay. Right. Oh, and Rosemary's also posting a link to the Cape Breton Genealogy and Historical Association. Like I said, so just another example of there's a genealogy society for pretty much anything you could possibly think of. Okay, let's see. Oh, a lot of very nice words here. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so I think that's everything. So we have a few more minutes. So just to wrap up, I will be sending a wrap-up email tomorrow evening that will have a link to the handout, to my slides, and also to the chat transcript. And so if you miss something, don't worry, you'll be able to access it all. And I will also be sending a link to the recording of this class once it is available on it'll be on the BPL's YouTube channel. Hopefully soon. I will say though, our AV department is only 2 people. They are extremely busy. So it might take a little while for them to get to, but they will do it eventually. And I will send it to everyone as soon as I get it. Also in the wrap-up email tomorrow, we'll have information about upcoming programs. So as I said, if you're interested in learning more about BPL's databases, I'm teaching a class on that in June. We also have a lecture coming up with a professional genealogist, Jennifer Zink, who'll be talking about using DNA to do genealogy. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out. So it looks like that's it for questions. So thank you for all the nice words, everyone. Thank you for joining us from all over the world. It's great to, and Rosemary is really coming in clutch here with all the wonderful links. Thank you so much, Rosemary. That is great. So the Canadian Museum of Immigration, that is excellent. Really appreciate that. So again, thank you, everyone. And if you're in the Boston area, hope you're staying cool right now. It's kind of warm out there. So I hope to see you all again soon, and have a good night.